on the center line itself. It is a matter of always constantly course correcting. And the more highly advanced the autopilot is, the more highly sophisticated are those avionics, then the more modest are those, even minute, infinitesimally small, are the course corrections. A beginning pilot who's not even using an autopilot will wander back and forth across that center line, seldom even intersecting it. But if we want to get from the beginning point to the planned destination in the shortest possible period of time, with the least risk that being off course might damage our ultimate outcome, then we need to be constantly course correcting. And so the purpose of this session was for each of you to be able to evaluate and analyze how closely are you engaged in the process that I am engaged in. But when I say that, I remind you all that I don't think I'm all that. I don't think I know everything. But I have chosen to invest my entire career in becoming increasingly efficient in the direct selling industry. And of course, now I'm so grateful to have found my way to Canaway here as I'm near the end of my career in the beginning. And this is the organization and the company that I intend to build as the final hallmark of success in my individual career. I'm hoping that you make that same choice. But I still constantly push. And this is the organization and the company that I intend to build as the final hallmark of success in my individual career. I'm hoping that you make that same choice. But I still constantly course correct. So I invite you, as we go through this dialogue, not to consider any of this to be criticism, but to accept this as simple guidance and a way for you to self-evaluate and determine if in fact you're somewhere off the path that I propose. And so the primary topic for tonight's discussion is called the Ladder of Escalation. A ladder, and I'm just using my small whiteboard as a simple message. The ladder. If we were to climb up on the roof or wanted to reach higher on the wall, then we would have a ladder, and we would climb this ladder to get to the top, where we can more easily reach whatever is up there out of our reach if we don't have a ladder. Now, the reason that this topic, the ladder of escalation, came up at that discussion is there in Anaheim, I observed some really good people who were standing out in the lobby a few moments before the event was to begin, eagerly awaiting their guest. And I thought, my gosh, there are no new mistakes in network marketing. There are new mistakes in direct selling. There are new people making old mistakes, and there are old people making old mistakes, but there are simply no new mistakes. When a person was invited to come to that major function, was a person was invited to come to that function as their first look at Canaway, they were simply asked to make too big a decision. It was their very first look. They were invited there to see Canaway for their first exposure. They didn't know much about the business. And in Southern California, as in many markets around the United States and around the world, even if on the map it looks close with traffic, 15 miles can be a fairly significant commitment, not a small commitment. Traffic can be a bit of a headache. It can take an hour to get 15 miles. And the person was asked to invest an entire day. And so here's the way human nature works. When the well-intended Canaway brand ambassador invited his or her candidate or guest or prospect, or however you phrase that, to come to this event, the candidate, in all likelihood, didn't say, no, I'm not going to come. Why did they not say that? Is it because they didn't want the brand ambassador to then go into a group of ways to overcome the objection, or to try to convince them or tell them why it was a good thing? And so they said something like, yeah, I'll try to be there, or unless something really important comes up, I'll be there, or sure, I'll see you there. They probably didn't come right out and say, for certain you can count on me, but they implied they would be there with no real intent of coming. The reason that they did that was because they didn't want the Canaway brand ambassador to overcome the objection. They didn't want to be convinced. They simply wanted to say, I'll try to be there. And the well-intended Canaway brand ambassador thought, great, my most wonderful candidate is going to come. And then they were standing out there 5 minutes after the event ended, wondering and waiting. Where is the guest? They were waiting for a guest who wasn't going to arrive. So the first rung on the ladder of escalation must be an introductory method, an introductory tool, and a method of delivering the tool where the only logical answer is yes, and where there's every reason to believe that the person will act upon that yes because of its ease. And so we come down here to your first look. Now, the company just introduced an absolutely brilliant first look video. I think it's about 3 minutes long. We introduced it at Anaheim. It's absolutely exceptional. Now, that said, I remember so many years ago when I was a student, and I remain a student, but when I was a beginning student, trying to learn how to not waste time, effort, energy, and money in the direct selling industry, trying to learn how to be profitable and efficient, I was speaking to various leaders, and I was asking, what is the tool that I should use that would cause my candidate to open their eyes and their ears and to see what I see in this opportunity? And here's a bit of truth. In the direct selling industry, many upper echelon leaders choose to make a secondary profit source out of selling their tool. I personally find fault with that. I don't think that's the right thing. In my own case, my every single profitability is based upon your profitability in the Canada compensation plan. I don't have a darn thing to sell you. If I happen to make a tool, I make it at my expense and I give it to you for free so that we have an exact shared interest in succeeding in the Canada compensation plan. But nevertheless, it's not unusual for leaders to sell tools to the organization. And so I was speaking to one fellow, and he said, well, Randy, the best video ever made is Catching a Wave. And of course, it was his tool. And he wanted me to buy them by the hundreds or by the thousands. And I went and I spoke to another fellow, and I said, well, what do you think is the best video to cause people to see this message? And he said, well, right time, right place is the video. And of course, that was his video that he wanted to sell me. And then I found somebody who told me the truth. The truth was this. He said, Randy, it doesn't matter what video you use. The videos could all be blank. And if you give out enough of them, the person you're looking for is going to call you back and say, hey, what was supposed to be on that video? Remember, folks, we are looking for people who are looking, and there's not some magical piece of information that will cause someone who's not looking to suddenly look. That's just not true. And so I am gratified that the company recently introduced an absolutely exceptional, beautiful first look tool. It's really good. But I also want you to know that what I was taught those years ago, it remains true. The person that we're looking for is looking for us, and the tool need not be perfect. What matters is that we open the funnel wide enough and get the information into enough people's hands that we find the person who is looking. That's first. But your first look must be a simple, easy tool. It must take only a matter of minutes to review, and they must be able to review it where they are. And so the first rung on the ladder of escalation, many of you watched or reviewed a Facebook Live session I did a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks back, and I talked about the fact that I play tennis. I play poorly. Some of you on this session have probably beat me playing tennis. I play tennis. I play poorly. But if I were to go to the tennis court today and use a little bit of practice, then I would not have someone on the other side of the net. Perhaps I'd have a pro over there getting it, be more likely to be no one over there. And I would have a basket of balls. And I would take that basket of balls and I would rehearse a stroke. And I would just begin hitting the balls across the net, trying to get top spin, trying to get the ball into the place on the court where I want to hit it. I would just hit those balls across the net, practicing the stroke. Well, every day in our business, I have a visualization just like that. Every day, I have my candidate list, and maybe depending on how time goes, we can talk a little bit about how to extend and grow our candidate list. But I have my candidate list. My candidate list is represented by those tennis balls here in the basket, and every day I just lob a few balls across the net. That's all I do. I lob a few balls across the net. I utilize a properly constructed script, and I lob 6 balls across the net every day. And that's my daily activity standard. What is yours? If you want my outcome, then you should have my behaviors. There's exactly no logic to suggest that you'll have the same outcome that I have if your inputs are not what mine are. Remember again, our every single outcome is a reflection of our inputs. And if you don't like your outcome, then what you must look at are the inputs that are creating the outcome. If you want an increased outcome, then modify the inputs. Maybe modify the method, the style, the quality, or maybe simply modify the quantity of the inputs such that you have the chance to get the right outcome. And so I'm just daily lobbing the ball across the net. So when I'm lobbing the ball across the net, that's down here. It's at your first look. And when I lob the ball across the net, I utilize a properly constructed script. And if you have not listened again and again and again and again and again and again and again, I'm mastering the art of the invitation, then here's a bit of truth, whether you like it or whether you don't. If you haven't listened to it so many times that you know automatically what the next phrase is going to come out of my mouth on that tape, then you have not yet made yourself eligible to succeed in Canada. And not everything I say makes people happy, and not everything makes them comfortable and grateful. But the truth is that if you have not listened to that so many times that you know it as well, that you know it well enough to go and recreate it tomorrow, if you haven't listened to it enough times that you could recreate it tomorrow for your group, then you have not yet made yourself eligible for real success in Canada. The truth is the truth, and it's good enough whether we like it or whether we don't. Well, so I lob the ball across the net with a properly constructed script. Sometimes that properly constructed script is delivered on the telephone. Sometimes that properly constructed script is delivered in a text or an email. And if you listen to Mastering the Art of the Invitation enough times, then you know that a properly constructed script and a proper invitation will first be personal. It will be directed to the outcome of that individual, not to my outcome, and it will properly compliment and affirm, all in a matter of seconds. And so it may be that that lob across the net happened as an exact example 2 days ago. The gentleman who he owns a window cleaning business, and he takes care of the windows in our home. And so now he's been taking care of the windows in our home for the last 3 years. And for the last 3 years, he's been observing. You can't help but observe our success and the activities around our home, and the products coming and going, the people coming and going. And it's impossible to be around us and not see success. And so when he opened the door, I waited until he opened the door. And he opened the door. This is key. So frequently in direct selling, we come rushing towards people with our solution. We rush towards them with our solution instead of waiting to find out what their problem is. And so I waited patiently. I observed the interest. I knew there was interest there 6 months ago and 7 months ago. But I waited patiently until he opened the door, and he opened the door by telling me that he was growing weary of his business, even though it's successful, and that he looked forward to the day when he could transition out of managing a bunch of people washing windows. See, he told me the problem, and I could then provide a solution. And so at that point in time, I resisted the temptation that so many people would have to sit him down and spend an hour. No, he was here managing a crew that day. He was in a hurry. I was already busy. And so what I said was simply, his name is Aaron. I said, Aaron, I've seen how well you work with your group, and I've seen the way they respect you. The first thing to do with an invitation, I complimented and I affirmed, and it was only true. Had it not been true, I wouldn't have said. I've seen how you work with your employees, and I see how much they respect you. Your leadership style would fit very well in our particular method of doing business, and I believe I can show you how to break through to a higher level of income. If you'd like, I'll be happy to send you a link when I get off this web session. See, that's what I do. A properly constructed script. You can learn how to properly invite by listening over and over and over again to Mastering the Art of the Invitation. And then the link I sent was the brand new company video link. And having now sent that first look link, I send that first look, I lob it across the net. Now in that case, this was a person who was, quote, warm market. People ask me all the time if I can teach them how to work in the cold market, and I cannot, because I don't work in the cold market. Instead, step number 6 is what? Step number 6 on the very surface is to create a preliminary candidate list, a handful of people we can interact with in the first week or 2 weeks to help our new member become Fast Start qualified, and for us ourselves to get Fast Start qualified. The extension of step number 6 is to learn to so live our lives so that our candidate list is constantly growing in front of us. And so now I don't know how to work in the cold market. What I do know how to do is interact constantly daily on an ongoing basis with people who are today unknown to me and help them gradually move down to become low-hanging fruit. By the time I made my first introductory comments to Aaron was low-hanging fruit. He was not someone up at the very top of the tree that I couldn't reach. Far too frequently, we impose our agenda on other people as opposed to being steadily, consistently engaged in a process that puts us in association with others so that they give us a chance to respond to their problem instead of us rushing towards them with a solution, not knowing a darn thing about what they'd like to accomplish in life. And so I lobbed that ball across the net. A very, very simple tool. It's easy, it's automatic. When I sent that link, what are the odds that Aaron would watch it? The odds were 100% that he would watch it. It was going to happen. And when I told him, and Aaron, after you review that link, and I use this tennis analogy, that after you review that link, please know, Aaron, that the ball is in your court. I would like to have a further conversation with you if you would like to have a further conversation with me after reviewing the link. Upon your review, please just send me a simple text and say, Randy, I'd like to have a further conversation, or thanks, but no, this is not the solution that I'm looking for. One of those two things. Because you see, I lob that ball across the net day after day after day, lob the ball across the net. But what I don't do is run over to the other court where the ball is bouncing off into the corner and say, are you going to hit that back? Are you going to hit that back? Did you watch the video? What did you like the best? What was your favorite part of that? Now, some people do that and they do it with success. I don't. The very moment that I follow up first, that's the moment that I feel like I'm chasing the candidate, and I've never yet one time in my life caught a candidate that I chased. And so what I do instead is, because of my very, very prolific front-end activity, it gives me the opportunity to not have to ever try to convince anyone to take action, but instead open the funnel wide enough that I find those who are looking for what I have to offer. And so, very predictably, Aaron said, that same day, yes, Randy, I had a general idea of what kind of business you were in, and the video validated my further interest. Now, those are my words with his commentary. And so, what is the next rung on the ladder of escalation? The next rung on the ladder, Aaron is now a highly, highly qualified candidate. He's been around my home a lot, and he's seen our life. He's a highly qualified candidate. And so I could have made a mistake at that point and invited him directly to a home business review. But remember, every single thing that we do is teaching somebody else what they must do. And so if I skip the next step, then I taught him to skip the next step. And so what I did next is here, I also go to a second link. And by the way, if you're accomplishing what you want to accomplish in this business, keep doing what you're doing. I never try to convince someone to do what I'm doing instead of what they're doing if you're happy with your result. If you are happy with your result, then I suggest you keep right on doing what you're doing. But if you at some point in time become dissatisfied with what your result, then I would say, is there a center line that I can course correct to, and have I either inadvertently or intentionally been away from that center line, and now I find that my activities are not producing the outcome that I want? Just always know there's a center line you can course correct to. Well, it would have been easy for me to not take the next step on the ladder of escalation because of the nature of the relationship with Aaron. I could have invited him to a home business review right then. I did not. Once again, every single thing that I do is teaching my candidate what he or she must, should, I hope will do to succeed in the business. As I said, well, that first week that you reviewed was a very simple introduction to our business. In advance of our getting together, I would like you to have even further knowledge. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to send you one more link for your review. And after having reviewed this and that dialogue, there's now 100% chance that you'll watch the next link. The next link, once again, there is no perfect link. There's no perfect link. It's not about the perfect link. It's about finding the person who wants what we have to offer. But what did I do in that case? He asked for a general business presentation. So what would be the most important information for you to receive for your next look at our company? Would you rather receive more detailed product information, or would you rather receive more detailed business information? He wanted more detailed business information. And so the next link that I sent him was a stored Facebook Live presentation of me delivering the entire Canaway business. Now, once again, I have to listen. Sometimes people refer to me as a public speaker. Folks, I hope I'm never a public speaker before I'm a public listener. I asked him what he would like to see or hear next based on this. I don't assume that I know. Would it be more important to you, Aaron, to have greater product validation or greater business validation in advance of us meeting in person? Once again, what is that? It's a script. Would it be more important to you, Aaron, to have more product information to validate your decision to join our company, or more important to you to have more business information? And I let him tell me what he'd like, and then I selected. And once again, it could be any one of a number of business links. It could be a company of firsts. It could be the problem. It could be the solution. It could be anything that Stuart Titus is on if he asks me for product information. I have a whole host. We have video resources and audio resources that support our entire product line. And so there's no such thing as the perfect tool. There is a perfect process. Having reviewed this and said, yes, I'd like to know more, in advance of our meeting in person, would it be of greater importance to you to have a little more product knowledge or a little more business knowledge to make sure that we're efficient when we meet? And then I send a link that is appropriate. Once again, I say, upon your review of that link, please send me a simple text that tells me of your review, and we can discuss the next step. Then the next step is an invitation to a home business review. Now, if there is a single area of complete process breakdown in the Canaway distributed force in the United States, it is here. I would be absolutely stunned to find out that there were even 35 people in all of Canaway, United States,
who last month conducted a home business review the way that I would have a home business review be conducted. There may be more than 35 people who opened their home and invited their downline to invite guests. That's not a home business review, folks. That's an open business presentation that happens to be held in your home. And it creates a totally different outcome. The outcome, what is the real outcome that I'm seeking? The outcome that I'm seeking is not that Aaron or anybody else join our company and place a first order. That is a cheap outcome. The outcome I'm seeking is that he become a valuable contributor to the long-term success of our company and that he accomplishes his financial goals and objectives. The outcome I'm seeking is that he becomes part of a core leadership group in the company. Many years ago, Cicero said the skill to do comes from the doing. He did not say the skill to do comes from the sitting in the audience. He did not say you'll develop extraordinary skills listening to gifted speakers. In fact, what skill will you ever develop listening to me or anyone else? None. The skill to do comes from the doing. And so you see, if the person are me or you, if I'm new, I may enlist the support of an upline to be there to encourage me and to help me and answer any questions that might come up and just make me feel secure. But what is a home business review? It is me, it is my personally invited candidates, and I may or may not have a member of the upline present. Of course, in my case, I would not. In your case, you may, if it's your very first one, and that's fine. By the way, that's part of being a responsible sponsor. Each and every time I enroll a new person, I make myself available. Notice I said I make myself available. I didn't say I go to their home and do a home business review, because it is a remarkably small percentage of people who take me up on my offer to do so. It's a very, very fascinating, interesting phenomenon that people want my outcome, but they want my outcome by doing what they want to do instead of by doing what I do. And by the way, again, I'm so careful. I don't hold myself up as some standard, but the truth is that I probably know as much about making money in network marketing as anybody you've ever going to interact with. And I definitely know as much as anybody does about making money in network marketing, while at the same time being assured that your success is predicated upon the widespread successes of other people. And so I will position myself as a bit of an expert in this particular field. And this process is one where there's a complete total breakdown in the Canaway domestic distributor force. It is a remarkably small percentage of Canaway members who in the last 30 days opened their home, invited a handful of guests over, their personally invited guests, and having been guided through the process, playing a simple video, showed other people how eminently replicatable the process was, and by virtue of participating in the process, the individual that was the host or hostess developed skill. That's my whole purpose. People completely misunderstand my primary purpose for home business review. My primary purpose for a home business review is not that we might enroll somebody. That for me is a positive secondary outcome, but that is not my primary purpose. Now I know other people, other leaders that I respect in the industry have a primary purpose of enrolling that night. My primary purpose is for my host or hostess to have the experience of conducting a home business review, because that experience, just the very fact of having done it, makes it much more likely that they will do it again. And so I tell each person in the new member orientation, my primary purpose for doing the home business review is to show you how to do it so that you feel confident doing it again. And if somebody happens to enroll, I think that's a beautiful thing. That's a positive secondary outcome, but it is not my primary purpose. My primary purpose is to teach you how to engage in this proven and predictable pattern of activities, which now in my case has created well over $3.5 billion in dream as being possible. And so, home business review, your first look, a follow-up link, properly constructed script leads to a home business review. The participants in a home business review are you and your personally invited guests. You may or may not have a member of the upline there with you to encourage and give support. And once again, the new member orientation is step number 6. We quantify and identify who is the immediate group of candidates that we will invite, who will encourage and support you, such that the first home business review is a positive experience. Many years ago, when I was first embarking, when I made a decision, I'm going to do this. When I say do this, do what? Network marketing. The person who I chose as my coach, my mentor, my leader, posed to me a question. He said, Randy, how good do you want to be? and his name is Nathan. I said, Nathan, within the confines of my particular talent set, notice I said talents, not skills. Talents, raw and unrefined, will produce nothing in this business. Talents refined into skills, which become beneficial to others, can make a fortune in the business. And so I said, Nathan, within the confines of my particular talents, I'd like to be as good as I can possibly be. He said, Randy, everyone I know who's really successful in this business has become comfortable addressing relatively larger groups of people. How do you suppose they became comfortable addressing relatively larger groups of people when one of the greatest fears that most humans have is talking to others outside of their immediate warmest friends? And even those warmest friends, if they invited them to a business discussion, they would be scared doing that. People are more afraid of speaking to an audience than they are of death or serious illnesses. And so he said, Randy, the way that these people became comfortable talking to groups of 30 is first, time after time after time, they talked to groups of 3 and 4 and 5. And the way they got comfortable talking to a group of 300 is because time after time after time, they talked to a group of 30. The group of 30 became a reality because of all the times they talked to groups of 5. And one never becomes comfortable talking to a group of 3,000, 5,000, or 10 until they become extraordinarily comfortable talking to 300 many, many, many times. And all of that is dependent upon this, minus this, and this. The skill will never be developed. The leadership platform will never widen out. In the direct selling industry, we hear so much criticism of this shape. No, folks, this is an absolutely beautiful shape. We do that upside down. This shape. So much criticism of this shape. Now, it's a fantastic shape. You can't knock it down. It's been standing in Egypt for the last 9,000 years. Once properly constructed, you simply cannot knock it down. Unfortunately, the vast majority of direct selling organizations look like this. A little teeny tiny pinnacle of leadership that is supporting more and more and more people. Why? Because the individuals in the business are not steadily and consistently opening their homes, doing home business reviews 2-3 times a month, maybe every week, over and over and over again, so that the leadership foundation broadens, so it's not dependent upon the same handful of people presenting the business over and over and over again. And that is exactly what happens when, instead of at a home business review, having each person open their home and being willing to make presentations that are not all that great, and by the way, they don't need to be, because he or she who is looking will find. But when we open our home and we participate in the process instead of being an audience in the process, that is the primary leadership development activity of all direct selling. It always has been, and it always will be. That is the simple truth. And so, in fact, this is what I want to build. And in fact, most network marketing organizations look like this. But no organization that looks like this will ever get very big. No organization that looks like this will stand the test of time. First run on the ladder of escalation, a very simple, easily viewed link. The only obvious answer is yes. Must be viewable immediately in a matter of seconds. Has to be free. Properly constructed script. Properly constructed script. We set the stage for how the follow-up is going to take place, so it never feels like we're chasing. If A, then B. If B, then C. Then they will come to the home business review. I always know who's coming and who's not. I am not one who's standing out on the porch wondering who's coming. I'm not one who's telling the 2 guests to arrive. Wait just a moment. I think 2 or 3 more are coming. No, I know who's coming. I know who's not. Why? Because I know how to invite. That's why. That's why I know who's coming. And so then we conduct a home business review. Now, for me, enrolling a new person is a process. There are other leaders in the industry who prefer that it be an event. I don't find fault with that. That's fine. It's a matter of style. For me, enrolling a new person is a process. I can enroll as many people as I want by pushing them to take action. I know how to do that. But that's not my personal style. I remember when I went to my first network marketing presentation, all I heard discussion of is what the business is, what the business is, what the business is, what the business is. I heard there was no discussion of what I need to do to become successful in the business, and therefore it was for me not actionable. And because it wasn't actionable, I couldn't act. I had to corner somebody and find a time when he would meet with me and explain to me what I would have to do to become successful. When I knew what the business is and I knew what I would have to do to be successful, it then became actionable and I could engage. And one of the most successful careers in the network marketing industry for the last 30 years was born. Well, a person that's come to the home business presentation, Once again, remember this, every single thing that we do is teaching somebody else what they must do. If you have not watched HBR Basics, please do. If you haven't watched HBR Format, please do. I'm having a home business review here at our home next week. And when I do, we'll have a handful of our personally invited guests. Some of you heard me announce that I'm having worked internationally almost entirely since getting involved in Canaway. Continue that process, but Samantha and I are starting a local group. We're going to develop a local leadership group, and so how do I do that? Now I've been logging the ball across the net. Next week we're hosting a home business review. Our home will have a group of our own personally invited candidates here, and when they are here, what they will see is an eminently replicatable process. Though I know this message inside and out, frontwards and backwards, I must remind myself, as I now remind you, that every single thing that we do is teaching someone else what they must do. And so I will resist the desire to talk. And I will instead follow the format so closely that you'll see, if you watch the video, Home Business Review Basics and HBR Format, if you were here as a fly on the wall observing next week when I do that presentation, you will see that it will follow so closely what's in that video that you'll say, wow, it's hard to imagine that there is literally not a step outside of that center line. And so people will come, I'll ask each one who they are and why they are here. Who are you and why are you here? That might be the most important part of the entire session, because even if the presentation then goes the exact same direction, the very fact that I ask each one, who are you and why are you here? What causes you to be here tonight? That changes the entire dynamic. Just that simple query. Who are you and why are you here? Just in 1 minute or so, because there's several of us here and we need to get around the room. But who are you and why are you here tonight? That might change the order of the videos that I play, or it might not. But that's the sum total of what the change would be in my presentation. And then we're going to watch 3 videos. We're going to watch the problem. We're going to, which is a starving endogenous cannabinoid system. We're going to watch a company at first, and we're going to watch the solution. And after each of those videos, then once again, utilizing a properly constructed script, I will simply provide a segue between videos. Now, given that I've been around this for a long period of time and I can add value to it, then I will talk for 4 or 5 minutes in between each of those videos, and I will provide a little bit more than a segue. I'll provide a segue and I will emphasize the key points in this video. I'll describe the key points I want them to watch for in the next video. But before I push play on the next one, I'll say, now, please, each of you understand. Should you choose to join me, you're brand new at this, and that little bridge that I've created between the videos, you need not build. The videos stand on their own. And so as you grow in the process, when you can add a little bit of value to the video, then do so, but do it as I did in 4 or 5 minutes, letting the video do the heavy lifting for you. Because why? Because we must create a process that will replicate tomorrow for a brand new person who doesn't yet have confidence standing in front of the room and saying very much. So please know the videos stand on their own, and you can simply push play on the next one if you don't yet feel comfortable providing any kind of segue between them. And so we'll watch those 3 videos, and having watched those 3 videos and having had the segue in between, then I will have been watching. Once again, I watch, I listen, I observe, and it will be evident to me. It will be evident to me by the time a half an hour presentation has gone by that is principally driven by video. It will be evident to me at least one person in the room who is visibly enthusiastic. And that is the person that I will address. And I'll address that person and I will say, Aaron, it's clear to me based on our discussions prior to tonight and your reactions here this evening that this is finding a home in you. And so what I'd really like to do is take the next step in evaluation with you. I'd like to schedule a time for us to do a new member orientation so we can take these concepts and take them out of the bag and make them specific and show you specifically and exactly the processes that we'll get involved in to make some money. Now, if you'd like to do that, Aaron, then what I'd like to do is send you a link for your review and advance that. The link that I would then send is the 10 steps to getting started correctly. That is the next rung on the ladder of escalation. There is a 100% chance that Aaron will say yes to that. And because Aaron says yes to that, what candidate A says will influence candidates B, C, D, E, F, and G more than anything else that I've said up until that time and after that time. The positive affirmation made by another candidate is of greater value than anything else I say at that point. Once again, total eminent replicatability. I will send the video link to 10 steps to getting started correctly. Aaron, please review the video. Write down any questions that you might have as you review it, and then I'd like to meet with you in person sometime in the next 48 hours for us to personalize this and set the ball in motion. Does that sound good to you? Aaron will say yes. They'll watch the video link. We'll then either get together in person, or if we're not in immediate close proximity, we'll meet together in a Zoom meeting room, and I will again go through the same 10 steps that you just watched on the video. The result of that will be, when we go through the 10 steps, now he knows in advance what he is going to be asked to. He knows in advance that at step number 1, we will do his enrollment at that time. He knows in advance what it means to place an appropriate initial order because he's watched the video, and we will then place an appropriate initial order. He knows in advance he's going to be asked to establish and make a commitment to Smart Ship. He's already watched the video. He knows what's. We go through the steps, and we simply act upon the information that is there, with the primary purpose of that new member orientation being that we will have scheduled his first home business review for sometime in the next 2 weeks from that moment. And his first home business review will be Aaron, or whomever it is. It will be Aaron, and it will be his personally invited guest. And because he's brand new and I'm his personal enroller, either I or Samantha, or both she and I will be there to push plays and segue between videos. Okay, and so the next rung on the ladder of escalation is where so many people start. Very few people enroll here, but some do. Some do. You see, I let people enroll when they want to enroll. And I once again qualify this. I don't find any fault with those who accelerate the process. It's just not what I do. I allow people to enroll when they want to enroll. If your personal style is to elicit a more rapid response, and that helps you to create urgency, and that works better for you, that's fine. But I say again that at any step of the way you find you're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish, then please know there is a center line. There is an absolute dead center line. There is the methodology that I have found is the most predictable way to cause people of every different background and skill set to be able to get the key in the lock of initial financial success. Financial success is the good income, is the lubrication, grease the wheels of all productivity in our business. And so now what happens after this? Very seldom does a person enroll here, but sometimes they do. They say, Randy, I want to get started. Great. I never say, no, don't start. You got to go through this process. Of course, I enroll them when they want to enroll. But if I enroll them when they want to enroll, I still go through the rest of the steps with them because I'm showing them what the steps are that are required. And it would be a horrible mistake to enroll somebody after watching a first link and not go through the rest of the process, because they will then believe that a whole bunch of others are going to do the same thing, and that's just not true. If I interact with somebody today who joins today, places a big order, and goes to work, that is just dead wide luck that I found someone whose personal timing was exactly right. It wasn't because I did anything right, except open my mouth and gave him a chance. See, and so if he or she, who acted immediately, has the expectation that others will similarly act immediately, they're probably going to be disappointed, and they're probably not going to last very long in the business. And so I share with them the truth. If we open the funnel wide enough, we'll find people who, just like you, are looking for what we have, whose personal timing is right. They're going to act immediately. There will be many others whose personal timing is not quite right yet, for whom it is a process instead of an event. So that might be my concluding thought on this: is a process or event. Well, it can be an event if I'm fortunate enough to find someone whose personal timing is exactly right. But if I don't find someone whose personal timing is exactly right, then in all likelihood it is going to be a process, not an event. And this ladder of escalation is what takes that person through an educational experience that gets them to the point of understanding how this can work in their life, irrespective of what obstacles they may be facing. Now, what's the next rung ladder of escalation? Most people don't enroll here, a handful do. Most don't enroll here, a handful do. For me, 25 or 30% enroll here. After this, 25 or 30% enroll here. Virtually everybody else enrolls here. If this, then this, if this, then this. By the time a person gets here, they enroll. They self-select and weed themselves out of the process before this if they're not going to enroll. By the time we get here, they enroll. And the key for me is they don't just enroll, they enroll having been engaged in a proven, predictable pattern of activities that will cause them to succeed if they do the exact same thing with their candidate that I did with them. And now the next rung on the ladder of escalation is where most people start. They invite them to an open business presentation. And the open business presentation, a lot of you guys have participated in these. The open business presentation is at some hotel. There are 25 Canada brand ambassadors there and 3 guests, and it's dead, dull, and lifeless, because that is the exact wrong mix in the room. That is an outcome That's an outcome. You see, what makes that an exciting process? What makes it exciting is when there are 15 Canway brand ambassadors and 35 guests in the room. That's also an outcome. An outcome of what? If 3 weeks from now, there's going to be an open Canway business presentation 15 or 20 miles from your home, if in that 3-week period of time, there are 11 or 12 or 13 or 14 Canway brand ambassadors who are doing this and who conducted home business reviews, and now they've each got 5 or 6 or 7 highly qualified candidates who need to see the bigger picture and interact with other leaders, interact with leadership, and see some success. That is the purpose of the open business presentation. That's what that's all about. But people who, the guest who comes here first, for the very first look, is there any reason to believe that they will do this? Absolutely not. If the guest was invited here first, they are not going to do this. And if they don't do this, they are never going to develop the skill that causes the organization to look like this. They instead are going to become yet another person that is clinging to the back of this leader who's making the presentation every 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, folks, please know this. I'll say it again. There are no new mistakes in our business. There are new people making old mistakes, and there are old people making old mistakes. And I can look at any organization, and in a matter of minutes, I can tell you whether that organization is building something that looks like this in the future, or if it's an organization that looks like this in the future. The organization looks like this, falls over, or it collapses, or it simply becomes too heavy to lift for that pinnacle of leadership that is down here that is way too small. And it is this process that creates this outcome. And this is a process that is being followed by precious few in our Canway domestic distributor force. Okay, now, after the open business presentation, what comes next? After the open business presentation, then comes, as the next rung on the ladder of escalation, by now they're enrolled, and they're in business. Once one gets enrolled and they're in the business, then the next rungs on the ladder of escalation are all about continuing education, skill development, and the continual building of belief. And so next comes an event like we had last weekend in Anaheim. See, that comes next. When a person came last week to Anaheim, and that was their first look, my gosh, they listened to Stuart Titus speak. They listened to Blake Schroeder speak. They listened to the top brand ambassadors in the company. They probably saw, in Stuart, they saw the industry's founder, not just our company's founder. They talked to the man. They listened to the man who is responsible for CBD being a product available anywhere on planet Earth. When they listened to my son Blake speak, they listened to a CEO who has guided this craft through an unbelievably difficult regulatory environment and created this beautiful, successful platform that we can all work in. They listened to people who are making enormous amounts of money. When that was their first look, clear up here, then will their second look be better? No, their second look will be dramatically insufficient. Stuart Titus, if that was their first look, then is there any logic on planet Earth that says that they're going to do this? No. The logic says instead they're going to wait until 3 months from now when Stuart Titus is coming to their town, or when the next major event is, and I promise you this, they will have forgotten all about Canada long before those 3 months go by, and so whatever effort was expended was a complete waste. That's the truth. It was a complete waste. And so, as you can tell, I have fairly strong opinions about this. The business that I'm involved in is the leadership development business. And the primary leadership development behavior of all direct selling, not just Canada, is private small group presentations and home business reviews. And I use those two terms interchangeably. Many parts of the world where I work, people do not customarily open their homes and invite relative strangers in. That's completely taboo in many parts of the world. And so there I don't call it a home business review. There we modify our business to fit the culture. We call it a private small group presentation. We meet in a coffee shop. We meet in a boardroom. We meet in a place where it's culturally appropriate. But it's the exact same process. And it, once again, is a process that is causing the new member to very shortly after enrollment begin hosting their own home business reviews, and that is the process that is creating a business that looks like this. And I'm sorry to say it, but the huge majority of our domestic Canada brand ambassador force is participating in a process that is simply adding new members to a leadership platform that's not growing. It's not developing a great new base of people with added knowledge and skill that allows the business to really take off. In fact, I'll tell you this, we're not going to get a lot bigger than we are right now until we develop more leaders or find more leaders. We're not, because we're about as big as we can be with the size leadership platform that we have. It has nothing to do with what Canaway can deliver, absolutely nothing. It has to do with what does the leadership turn into in the distributor force. That's going to determine how big we get. We already have enough products to be huge. We have more products than we need to be huge. We have a compensation mechanism that allows us to be huge. We have a name, we have an image, we have branding, we have every single thing. The company need not do anything else, literally nothing, for us to become a very, very large company. But the distributor force has to do things quite differently in order for us to become a very, very large company. And so, all that said, I hope that not one person listening to this dialogue tonight said, well, Randy was critical. No, I'm not critical. That which is measured can be improved. That which is measured can be improved. And so I would ask you this. Do you have your basket of balls over here, and are you lobbing them across the net? What is your daily activity standard? Do you have one? And how much do you adhere to that daily activity standard? If you find that you don't have a basket full of balls here, that means that you haven't learned at step number 6, how to so live your life so your candidness is growing in front of you. There's absolutely nothing about what I do that is difficult. But there are a few things about what I do that may be slightly counterintuitive and that your past life's experiences may not have completely prepared you for. I've made a decision that I'm going to be, I've made a decision that I'm going to be more visible in the United States business, and I'm going to be a little bit more forceful in my delivery of information. And so you'll see probably about once every 2 weeks, given my continued international travel, about once every 2 weeks, I'll be doing a leadership-based discussion like tonight, where I share with you very, very specific and pointed thoughts. And I will share them with you, hoping that they find fertile soil and hoping that I don't offend any, but realizing that if I do offend some, that's their problem. So anyway, I want you to know that you're great. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to conduct a home business review here in our home next week. I'm excited that Samantha and I are going to be interacting with some really, really extraordinary Canada leadership in Costa Rica. We leave tomorrow to go there for a week. And then we get home next Tuesday and next Wednesday. We're hosting a home business review here. And it'll be very, very much like it was 3.5 years ago, the first weekend. I invited a handful of people over our home. This coming weekend, this next week, I'm inviting a handful of people to our home, launching a new group, a new leadership platform we developed. And I am not going to allow that group to skate by on the message of you can be first. And I'm not going to let them skate by on the message of the end of the prohibition of cannabis. The process that I have always been involved in, that I'm involved in today, is a process that would work if you were an ammo distributor or an Herbalife distributor or a new skin distributor. It does not demand the magic of the end of the prohibition of cannabis message. It doesn't demand uniqueness and extraordinarily wonderful confines of our product offering. It demands that we engage ourselves in a process that grow us, that develop our leadership skills, and that foster the same in others. And that's my target. If we have a target, we should not get it. So God bless y'all. I'll give it with me. Scott and Rita, thanks for asking me to do this. Look forward to seeing you in Costa Rica. Safe travels. Everybody have a beautiful night.